attendance at this conference today. Basically what my job is to do is talk a little bit about the past and a little bit about the lessons that we've learned from what we've done before, and then evolve that into some ideas about what we need to do for the next generation broadband. Well, that's interesting the way that that's come out. I'm sorry, Rory, your constituency's been highlighted there in a very strange way. Excuse me for that. Basically, those of you who've been around a little while remember that we did have a first generation project called Project Access. And on completion of that, we could boast 99% availability of 2 meg services, 9 community networks, and 75% of our businesses online and trading. At that time, that was the highest proportion of businesses in any county in Europe trading and working online on the internet. However, since that time, and since the closure of our first generation project, the situation has unfortunately deteriorated. We have discovered, whilst our business adoption continues to grow, and it is now over 90% of our businesses use the internet daily, and around about 75% of our domestic communities do use broadband, we are finding that the situation is getting worse. And it's getting worse for a number of reasons. One is we've discovered that our 2 meg network is not performing as well as we thought it would do. And indeed, in some areas, in some places, its performance is deteriorating to the point of being unusable. We're also discovering that there are new not spots and poor spots evolving as businesses develop in the rural communities, lifestyle businesses, and people wanting to work from home. We're discovering a new range of problems that we didn't see before, and these are emerging into a number of quite serious not spots, many of which are in this constituency. Oh, sorry, before I move on to that, we're also finding that our network is actually slowing down, and this stems from a very important point. We are in Cumbria very, very high users of broadband and the internet services. And because it's a shared service, as we use it to its capacity, our individual experiences of that are dropping daily. And indeed, my email box is full of complaints about broadband that was once fine that is no longer fine anymore. So about a year ago, we decided to go and work out what to do about this. And we did a little, very brief survey of about 2,000 businesses around the county to try and find out whether or not there was a demand for next generation access. And this is what we found, basically. Curiously, naturally, as speeds offered grew from 2 meg to 50 meg, more people were interested. But very curiously, above 50 meg, there seemed to be actually less demand, even though the price was the same. And even when you pushed the price up, we found a similar drop. And of course, when the price was a ridiculous amount of £75 a month, nobody was really interested at all. But what this showed us was that there was clearly beginning to be an emerging market for NGA at around probably less than £40 a month and up to about 50 megs. Interestingly, while we were doing this, we also found out something else that was very, very interesting. And that was that whilst people didn't necessarily know what NGA was, and perhaps that's one of the things we have to address, it was overwhelmingly clear that there was growing dissatisfaction with the current networks that were in place. And indeed, we're finding out, I had 3 calls only yesterday about broadband networks that we've put in place that are beginning to have serious numbers of performance problems. But also, curiously, just in the last year, there have been to our office an increase in number of inquiries about speeds beyond 25 megs, which I've generally, in this particular category here, called NGA. So the need is beginning to grow. So what conclusions can we make from that? There certainly is an emerging demand for NGA in this county. But overwhelmingly, there is a demand for something that is considerably better than what we have now. The problem with what we have now is there's no incentive, there's no more money in the system to encourage our telecommunications suppliers to do anything about it. If they put more backhaul in, if they put more faster switching services in or what have you, they have to spend money for which they get no more revenue. So there's no incentive. So some way we have to find more money. And that can be done in 2 ways. We can ask the government for some help, and I think we do need to do that, or we can improve the service so that people pay more, and that way, and there's more money in the system to develop the networks that we need and grow them. But either way, if we're going to invest in anything that we do, we shouldn't invest to solve today's problem. We should invest to solve tomorrow's problem, which is NGA. Yeah, any money we spend now might solve the immediate problem, I've got crap broadband, yeah, but actually, yeah, solves the problem that they'll have today in 5 years' time. And where I'm coming from, and what I intend to do about it, yeah, is to try and make sure that we go one last time to government and ask for help in this department and actually create sustainable broadband at significant speeds on into the future. The lessons from the past that are very, very crucial. We had a significant demand stimulation program, and that undoubtedly helped us to make sure that we had the highest and still have the highest use of the internet here in this county, anywhere in the UK. We must continue to do that, because what's clear to me is people now understand what broadband is, but they don't necessarily understand what NGA is yet. The second thing is we must be careful about is we're talking about universal service commitment. Yeah? Public money, if we're going to use it, must be addressed at solving universal service commitment. Yeah? And we have a few things that we learnt from Project Access earlier, in the early days. And what I mean by that, I mean we did 9 community broadband projects over the county as part of the first generation stuff. But what we tended to do is by solving a community, yeah, sometimes we left people on the periphery of that community that couldn't get it, and that actually made it disproportionately more difficult to get to them. We must be very careful that we don't create islands of have NGA in a sea of places that don't have NGA. We also must, I think one of the things is we have this desire to have broadband at the same price as London. That may be an unrealistic prospect for us, and we may have to pay a little bit more. I'm not saying a lot more, but a little bit more than perhaps what they would do in other parts of the country. For God's sake, we live in a wonderful county with many, many benefits, and one of the small premiums for living in this wonderful place is we might have to spend a couple of pounds more per month on our broadband, on our next generation access than other people. But whatever we do, we must charge a realistic rate for that broadband so that it generates revenues so that the network can continue to develop. And in doing so, we must set expectations that we can be met. One of the worst things we did, yeah, is talk about 2 megabit services, because as you're probably all aware here, we're not really achieving those 2 megabit services. So we must set expectations with our communities that we realistically can meet. And setting a speed target, for example, might not be the best way of doing it. Perhaps we should be setting a performance target rather than a speed target. But that's an interesting debate to come on, because how you set a performance target that you can easily communicate to people is actually very difficult. But one thing I want to say more than anything, you know, if the government helps us with NGA, we have proved with the previous investments that the government have made here that we will get off our backsides and use it very well. So what am I doing about it? Well, very, very simply, you know, my company, my modest little company, has put a bid in, one of the bids that Mr. Vasey talked about earlier on, for one of the BD UK broadband trials here in the county. We've tried to demonstrate, I do believe we have demonstrated, that we can create a sustainable, growing and multiplying NGA service here in the county, using some very clever technologies which I won't bore you with, that's not what I'm really here to do. Yeah? We can ensure, yeah, and with this bid, we know, and we've got the commitments to lever a further £8 million on top of the £5 million we've asked for, to not only do this constituency, but actually move what we do in this constituency to the whole of the rest of Cumbria. And the vision of the project is very, very simple. Yeah, I want nothing else less than to put this sign up on the Lancashire border, yeah, in 5 years' time. Thank you very much.